You want to fight? Or you want to win?
Tony, you were right. I sobbed my eyes out with the series. And honestly, if I talk too much about it, I might cry. So I'm going to talk about fun things. I am a sucker for world building, and I love that we get to see so much of Chandrila and Ghorman. And I'm curious, because this is the first time we really get to see them and their culture and their depth. What was it like getting to build these worlds, especially in these first 3 episodes? We see so much of the Chandrilan culture.
Luke Hull, who's the production designer, he's the first person I deal with. He's really my primary collaborator creatively. And, we had such a thrill making Ferrex, and we went so deep on it. And it was such a payday for us all the way around. And we just, we learned how to do it there, and we learned how deep we could go. And then we learned that if we go really, really deep, people really appreciate it and they go with us. And, I want to say that it's so much hard work, but it's really just so much fun to play God. I mean, I can't even tell you. Challenging. You got to come up with a new aesthetic. You don't want to do anything you did before, so you're searching for things. We're both very, very particular about how things go, but what's it look like? What's the architecture like? What's the economy? Coming up with the culture, the vibe. The language. Nick Britell and I wrote the national anthem. It's an incredible amount of work, and a lot of it exists off the screen, and there's some things you don't see, but it's just really fun.
I love it. I love everything that we get to see in this. And something I also really love, Genevieve, with Mon's story in these first 3 episodes, I feel like I could wax and wane philosophical about so many of the little details of the character work that we get to see in these first 3 episodes. And I'm curious for you, what do you think it is about telling this part of her story with her daughter and her kind of connection to her culture and her heritage, how it kind of arcs into what we see of her in Rogue One and then down the line as well?
I mean, that work that Tony is referring to that they did, Luke and Tony, and then our costume designer, Michael Wilkinson, and our hair and makeup designer, Emma Scott, they create a world. And what that does is it informs character, because all of a sudden you have a character steeped in a history that we've heard about before, but we actually get to witness the lived experience of her within that culture. You can feel the bits that she's comfortable with, the bits that she's very uncomfortable with. You can feel the bits that are imposed on her. I mean, I'm remembering there's a hike that we did up in Montserrat, and there's this little bit between Vel and Mon where you can see there is such derision in their experience. They're like, oh, here we go up to the top, and this is what happens. But you get such a window into a history, a shared history. And what that does then is interweave within the relationships that are written between mother and daughter, between husband and wife. You also have people from the outside coming in. So you have a window through Luthen or even Davos Skulden. You see within the same culture, you see really massive differences between maybe the Mothmas and the Skuldens. Do you know what I mean? It's so rich. It informs so much. So I think it can't but inform or add to or create how you watch the rest then.
I love that. And I'm also curious, have you read any of the other kind of the books that have Mon in them? Because in watching this, I spent so much time thinking about how, in particular, there's a book where she helps with Leia's honeymoon on the cruise liner that Han and her go on. And I think about how that adds new context to those scenes now because of seeing how she kind of had this failed situation with her daughter and the moments where she's trying to bond with her.
I have to plead ignorance.
No.
I have to plead ignorance here. And I think it was really important for us to invest in this.
It doesn't help us to do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't help to. It doesn't help to. No, we've cast our own spell, so we try to tune that out. Really.
But I love how it ends up informing things in the reader's mind.
I mean, I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. I love that. Another question I have, it's more world building stuff. I love so much of the world building in these first 3 episodes. Mina-Rau is an interesting agricultural planet with a lot of culture as well, that I feel like there's probably more going on around it that we don't necessarily see on screen, kind of based off of what you're saying there about creating these other cultures. Why an agricultural planet? Kind of what went into the decision there, the conception of that?
I wanted them to go someplace that was vaguely utopian and bright and happy and a comfortable place that they really felt satisfied, and a community that was welcoming and interesting. And I'm just obsessed with economics, and like, I'm always like, where do people get money from? And like, how do you feed all these people in Coruscant? Like, where does all this food come from? And how does it work? And so the idea of this gigantic sort of Soviet commune farm system made sense to me. So, but I think the primary impulse was to have some place that felt warm and comfy, and someplace that you'd want to stay.
I love that. I'm an anthropologist by trade. So like all of these like world things and the culture, I'm like, I want more. So it's great to see how it's been brought about on screen. Another question for you, Genevieve, about Mon is, what is going through her head in that moment where she realizes what Luthen is talking about in terms of handling the Tay situation? Because I love the Tay and Mon dynamic. I know a lot of people really liked it in season 1 as well. And seeing kind of where it ends is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and the work that we did in season 1, he was so valuable. He was everything to her. He was he was really her partner in season 1. So then to start season 2, and it's an incremental staircase there in episodes 1, 2, and 3, where that's within Tony's writing, he kind of layers. There are these little layers, and it's very subtle. And so in that very first scene, you meet them, and she's actually spotted Luthen, but Tay comes up and they have this conversation. And there's a real subtlety in the writing and also in the acting, where it's just a little bit flat. The tone is a tiny bit flat or a little bit off, and so she can clock that and move on because of the culture of the ceremony. And then in episode 2, there's another. And in episode 3, there's another. And it's this very slow dawning on a woman that there is a threat within her own choices and in her very, very tight circle. Would you say that?
I had to really sell this one. She's making it sound really easy. There's a couple things I had to really sell. This was a real sales job on my part. There was people who were like, I don't know if we can turn it that fast. And God, take Calma. And I'm like, it's a year later, and he's Fredo. He's Fredo. People go Fredo. How many people you know in your life? And like a year later, whoa. I had to really sell it, and I had to really, probably to my benefit, they put a lot of pressure on it, and I probably went and gave it some help along the way. But it was not a slam dunk when I turned that one in. No.
Interesting.
No. She made it sound really smooth, but now she's like, really?
That's my job.
No, I know. No, but but Tay Calma, it's Fredo.
Yeah, I love that. I do have one spoilery question for the next set of episodes. The recast of Bail, how did that come to be? Was Jimmy busy? I love Benjamin. He's a perfect pick for Bail.
I mean, bring back the legacy characters is always a complicated process between money and scheduling and territory and everything else. I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, he would have come back. They couldn't put it together. He was doing a television series that was peaking at that point in time, and it just couldn't work out. And finally, I mean, we have to have him because we have to, you have to have him. So Ben was just just such a brilliant get as a replacement.
He's a fantastic Bail, and I'm just glad it wasn't the AI de-aging, any of that. I was glad it was a recast.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Me too.
Yeah. Me too.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you both so much, and I will see you in Japan in a few days.
Wow.
Hooray.
Fantastic. Thank you.
See you there.